Spoiler alert, Sondors is junk. Now, these are my own personal opinions, and I'm not paid or sponsored by any of these companies for this product review. That said, let's get into this review. So this is actually a direct comparison of the Sondors 7, which I paid $1,152 for. Going up against this bike is the Radrover from Rad Power Bikes. This bike I paid $1,499 shipped, and I feel like this is a great comparison because they're both fat tire bikes. They're in the same price range. So let's go over some of the specs first off about each bike. And the Sondors 7 here actually features a 350 watt Bafang hub motor, Shimano Tourney 7-speed gear set, Tektro 160 millimeter brakes, a 36 volt 12.8 amp hour battery, which is an upgraded option, and suspension forks, which is also an upgraded option. And then we have the Radrover, which features a 750 watt Bafang hub motor, Shimano Acera 7-speed gear set, Tektro 180 millimeter brakes, a 48 volt 11.7 amp hour battery, which is standard, and suspension forks, which are also standard. Next up, build quality. Now we'll start off here with the Sondors 7. I have to say, actually, I do love the paint on this bike. This is actually the silver bike, of course, and it looks really good. However, regarding the frame, as you can see, the top tube up here is straight. It does not have a little dip to it. And as you look on the Radrover, you'll see that this actually has a dip into it. And the reason why that's important is your standover height. Now, my girlfriend is 5'4". She cannot touch the ground on the Sondors because it does not have that dip, but she can actually touch the ground with the Radrover because of that dip. So that is a main thing that we look for now, because obviously if she can't stand over the bike, it's really hard for her to ride the bike. But overall, the actual frame of the Sondors, I don't really have any complaints. If you look at it here, I mean, the welds are really good. The paint job is really nice. I mean, at least in this specific color, maybe because it hides more, who knows, but I'm definitely a fan of the silver. And they do have some funky colors with the Sondors bikes, but another nice thing is they actually put these plugs, so if you don't have a rack on your bike, they plug up those holes. That is a nice feature. And of course, looking at the Radrover frame, same thing, high quality welds. Now this frame is aluminum. The Sondors 7 that I'm comparing this to is also aluminum. However, Sondors offers steel frames as well, so you need to make sure you check that out. But the main thing about this bike that I really like about the frame is that it's got that little dip in there for your standover height. So if you're shorter than 5'8", 5'6", that's something that's going to be a really big deal for you. But overall, the frame, actually on both bikes, you really can't go wrong with just the frame themselves. They're both high quality frames. Next up, the most important thing, power. Now, I was disappointed with the performance of this bike. However, this particular bike I ordered has a 350 watt hub motor. Sondors does offer a 500 watt hub motor, which is still, I consider, to be underpowered, at least compared to the Radrover. This one features a 750 watt hub motor, which is a big difference. And actually, if you watch this video, I'm on the Sondors 7, my girlfriend's on the Radrover, I tell her to gun it, and she is gone. Yeah, that's a big difference. So next up, components. So I was really disappointed because I paid $100 for this so-called upgrade of suspension forks. There's no lockouts, there's no adjustments, it's just basically a cushy front fork. And the other thing that really just irritated me was if you look at this front plate right up here, this front plate's actually just welded on. And I was able to look in there a little bit and actually see some rust because I took this to the beach, and there's rust in there, which makes sense because they can't get paint in there. But either way, I was very disappointed with the so-called upgraded option of the suspension forks on the Sondors. There's no adjustability, you can't lock it out, it's just crap. Now looking at the Radrover, this is actually all standard. You can lock these forks out, you can adjust them. The front bracket here, it's all one piece. I mean, this is obviously a much higher quality fork that's standard on the bike. Now, I lock my forks out quite often, and that's definitely a nice feature to have. And then also the ability to actually adjust them is also a nice perk. So if I'm going to pay $100 for an upgrade on the Sondors bike, I'd really want forks like this. So let's talk about the back end of the bike here on this frame rail. Now, in this particular case on the Sondors 7, this actually has some nice brackets in there that actually hold the cabling in place. But you notice that there's no chain guard. So when you get some chain slap in here, this chain has a lot of movement into it, which can nick up the bottom bar here on the frame. If you look at the Radrover here, this one actually uses zip ties to keep the wires in place. I wish they had some metal brackets like the Sondors does, but at least they have a cover on here, so if you get some chain slap, it's not going to ruin the finish of your paint. So that's definitely a nice little added perk, having this piece right here to protect against that kind of damage. So moving a little bit further up, let's talk about the pedals. On the Sondors 7, these feature aluminum pedals. They're definitely wide-bodied, which is good because it's a fat tire bike, so it gives you a little bit bigger platform to put your feet on. Same thing with the Radrover. Also aluminum, wide body, fantastic. No complaints on either bike as far as the pedals go. I do, however, have a complaint with the chain guard on the Sondors. This thing is plastic. Who puts plastic on their bike like that? That thing is just asking to get broken, and it's very cheap. And who knows, after a little bit of sun exposure, it might just get brittle. So we don't know, only time will tell. On the Radrover, they actually use a aluminum chain guard. Now my bike is a little bit older, but on the new models here, they actually offer an inside chain guard as well. But that's definitely a nice feature to have, especially for an area like that. That's huge. So on the Sondors 7, they use a Shimano Tourney gear set. This is a 7-speed. It's definitely on the lower end of quality. It's a little bit clunkier, and the components are a little bit more plastic based. On the Radrover, they decided to step it up a little bit. They used the Shimano Acera trim. This has a little bit more metal components to it. And between the two bikes, this one definitely shifts a little bit quieter. So on to the handlebars. Plenty of room for accessories. Thinner, of course. And when we look over here at the grips are definitely cheaper. They're kind of nice because of the rubber. Good grip on them, but just overall they feel cheap. This mirror is mine, don't worry about that. But the handlebar grips, they just feel really cheap to me. Anyways, moving over, we got the button, got the handlebars, of course, and then we have the headset. Now the headset's a little bit of a funky design. It's all aluminum. Personally, not my kind of style, but at least, you know, it is a nice feature on the bike. And then you get to the thumb throttle. This thing is the biggest joke Sondors could have put on their bike. Look at this thing, it's just wiggling. It's so fucking cheap. Pardon my language, but they really screwed up right there. Furthermore, with the shifter on here, it's really hard to reach the thumb throttle because you kind of have to like lean over just to get to it. Plus on top of that, once you get to the thumb throttle, it's just cheap. You kind of don't want to use it because you kind of feel like you're going to break it. And that's probably why they sell it as an additional part on their website in case you do break it. But anyways, moving on to the shifter here. The shifter's nice. Actually, I have no complaints with the shifter other than it's kind of awkward to get to it because of the grips. The grips have this little button right here for the adjusters, and they kind of poke up on your palm when you grab it. It is a nice shifter. It works smoothly. No complaints with the shifter at all. It's just that damn thumb throttle. So moving on over to the Radrover. First things first, the cell phone holder, the mirror, and the thumb throttle attachment. Along with the GoPro mount here, those are all add-on accessories. But going to the grips, I love these grips. They're pleather, and they're definitely wide. They're definitely comfortable. They're just like the Sondors, but they're a little bit more beefed up, and they have a little bit more grasp to them. And the nice thing I also like is the bell. Built into the bike, into the brake handlebars right here. So everything you need, very accessible here on the left side. Of course, you have your button control for your LCD screen. So moving to the right side here, you'll notice that the right grip is a little bit shorter because they actually have a twist throttle on this side. Now I'm more of a fan of the thumb throttle, so I helped design this add-on accessory, which is sold by a different company. But it makes it a lot easier, regardless if you have a twist throttle or the thumb throttle attachment. It's just a lot easier to operate the throttle when it's that much closer to your handlebars. And it's so seamless because it's so close. So when you're in those intersections, you need to romp on it to get up to speed quickly. Easy access to the throttle because it's right there connected with the grip. Now moving on to the shifter, I have no complaints with this shifter. Push the button to go to a higher gear. It's easy to get to. If you want to move up a gear, you have the lever at the top here, also easy to get to. And with the twist throttle, it's easily accessible. So moving to the front of the handlebars here, as you can see, brand name, Zoom handlebars. And with the brakes here, I really like these brakes. And the reason why is because they have this little rubber piece on the front end of them. That makes it so much easier to grab them, especially in wet conditions. That is a really, really nice feature to have on the front brake levers. So definitely a nice added touch with that. Now a nice feature the Radrover has over the Sondors is a headlight. And that's really nice because you can actually run a headlight off the onboard battery pack. And you have the wire leads that come right off the LCD display, and you control the entire headlight off of the LCD display panel. And it's all tied into the bike. Now this particular headlight on my Radrover is a prototype that we're building. But either way, it's standard equipment on the bike. And it's all tied into the factory wiring using your factory battery. Easy peasy. On the Sondors, there's no wire leads, there's no way to hook up a aftermarket headlight. You could mount one, however, there is no wires, and there's no way, unless you do heavy modifications, to add an external headlight to run off the bike. So let's talk brakes. Each bike weighs about 60 pounds, plus your cargo and your weight. That is a lot of weight to slow down. So the Radrover features a 180 millimeter disc brake. Front and rear, of course. With the 180 millimeter disc brakes, you're going to get better control of your stopping, and you're going to get more stopping power. And that's a pretty big deal when you're considering buying an e-bike because of the added weight of the bike. On the Sondors, they feature a 160 millimeter disc rotor, which is smaller, so you're not going to have as much control of your braking, and you're not going to have as much stopping power. Now, don't get me wrong, both brakes work and they stop. You'll just have more control and more power with the Radrover's 180 millimeter brakes. Now, I want to touch on kickstands for a quick second because this, applies to me for my types of conditions that I ride my bikes in. As you can see here with the Sondors kickstand, this thing is like a stake in the ground. On top of that, it's just cheap metal up here at the top that's riveted in with a spring. It does have a metal shaft, which is nice, a little bit more durable. But like I said, this thing is like a stake. This thing just digs into the ground. So if you're at the beach a lot, or you're somewhere where there's wet ground, that soft ground, this thing will just poke right into the ground. I mean, this thing went in a good 2 inches at least into the sand. And that's with no cargo on the bike. That's with no weight. It's just the weight of the bike itself. Now with the Radrover, this one has a little bit more of a beefier kickstand, especially with a wider footprint. You put this thing down, the wider footprint keeps it above ground. And it's definitely stiffer at the top, metal frame construction. The foot peg here is adjustable, and it is actually made out of plastic on the lower portion of it. But the nice thing is it's got this wide footprint that's not going to dig into the ground. And for me, when I go to the beach, which is quite often, that is a huge deal. Now let's talk batteries. First, you got to get on your knees just to get access to the charge port because you got to get down there low, and you need to peel off this damn rubber cap just to get access to the charge port. That is a huge pain in the ass because you have to remove this silly little rubber cap just to get to the charge port to charge the damn bike. Or you have the option to open up the cover and get to the battery. Open up the cover. Come on, we can do it. Oh, geez, it's taking forever. All right, anyway. So we open up the cover, right? And then you have access to the battery. It's locked in there, which is nice. Nice safety feature, I guess. But then you also have to unscrew the barrel connector that connects to the controller. So you have to unscrew this damn thing just to get the battery out, and that's a huge pain in the ass as well. I'm not going to do it, but it's still a huge pain in the ass. And of course, I don't have the battery turned on, so we'll have to go to the other side and turn it on. But before we do that, the other thing I really dislike is how cheap these connectors are. This is a super cheap barrel connector for the controller. Not a fan. Anyway, let's close it up sometime today. Okay. And then if you want to turn the damn battery on, there's another cap. And you have to peel this cap off just to get access to the inside to turn the battery on or off. So how stupid is that? You got to turn the battery on, you got to turn the battery off, you got to take this rubber cap off. You got to take this rubber cap that you just dropped in the sand, and you got to put it back on so you don't get any dirt or dust or water inside this damn triangle. It is a huge pain in the ass. My biggest complaint of the Sondors bike overall is the battery management. So on the Radrover, as you can see, the battery and the controller are exposed and they're mounted on the frame of the bike. And the controller is back here on the back end. It's weather sealed, ready to go, as are the connectors. And the battery itself is also weather sealed. It features a super easy, convenient on-off switch, lockable to the frame of the bike with a lock and key. And the battery pack also doubles as an external battery pack for your USB devices. So if you need to charge the battery or take the battery with you, it just easily comes right off the bike as long as you unlock it from the frame. And it goes just as easy right back onto the frame. It's a lot easier to manage this battery, especially if you need to take the battery off to charge it, because you don't need to mess with anything that is covering up the battery pack inside the frame here. It's very easy to get to. On the Sondors, they have that cover on there, which is kind of nice because it kind of blocks out the battery a little bit, but at the same time, it does get in the way, especially when you're pedaling. Facebook, web forums, who has the better online support community for each brand? So the best, most active, fastest way to ever get a response from an online community would hands down have to be Facebook groups. Now, I had the privilege to join the Sondors owners group, and during my duration on that group, I quickly learned that a lot of the content that's on that group is filtered. It's filtered in a way to protect the image of the brand. Now, the admins have a stick shoved up so far up their ass, I don't even think they know what's going on. But yet, they're still there running poor management skills of an online group that's supposed to address issues and come up with solutions for problems or ideas. And yet they hamper that growth by deleting anything that has anything negative or requires modifications to the bikes. There was a post that was actually created by a user to lock out the handlebars on the bike for added security. A lockout much similar to one you'd find on a motorcycle. The admin deleted that post, and his reasoning for that, mind-blowing, was because it would require too much modification for the average user, therefore we deleted the post. Doesn't make any sense. At least to me it doesn't. So that group is really only great to say, I went on a bike ride here, I enjoyed my bike, this, that, the other thing. If you have a question or concern about your order, if you want to do any heavy modifications to your bikes, your post will get deleted. There's a lot of members that join that group and they get irritated because their post or a conversation they were a part of was deleted and removed from the group. You can join this group and you'll be able to see it firsthand yourself after a few days. But overall, the Sondors owners group on there, they got about 6,000 members. By far, the worst group on Facebook I have ever joined. And it's really unfortunate because, there's a lot of people in that group, a lot of great people that are in that group. But the management of that group is such a fucking joke that they're going to they're going to help Sondors themselves basically go out of business. So hopefully they get their shit together, because they're going nowhere fast. Now, on the Rad Power Bike Owners Group on Facebook, this is a group that is owned by a owner of the bike, not managed by the company of Rad Power Bikes. So this is an owners-based group, and it's a completely different atmosphere compared to the Sondors. The Sondors has an online joke of being a cult. Well, that's understandable because they're very passionate about their bikes. The Rad community, however, totally different mindset. They don't discriminate against you owning different brand bikes. If you have something negative to say about the brand itself, your post doesn't get deleted. There's other people on there that contribute to their thoughts of the bike, or they actually just help out trying to solve any issues. But it's a totally different atmosphere being on the Rad Power Bikes Owners Group than it is on the Sondors. If you're considering purchasing either bike, I highly recommend that you join both communities and you compare them side by side, because it is literally a night and day difference between the management of the Rad Power Bike Owners Group and the management of the Sondors Owners Group. So next, let's go over the online ordering experience and what kind of information you can get from their website and the kind of confidence you can get from purchasing either bike. So when you land on the Sondors webpage, it's pretty easy to see, especially up here at the top where it says now available for pre-sale. That's how all their sales go, because Sondors actually really doesn't keep an inventory. You'll see a button here that says invest now, and the reason for that is because they want people to invest in their company and make them bigger. See, Sondors doesn't really carry an inventory. If they do, I highly suspect the reason for that inventory is from the order cancellations that they get. And they're forced to, buy those bikes anyways because they're already made, and now they have to store them, and hopefully they can unload them because people canceled their order.
You can expect delivery in up to 90 to 120 days after you place your order.
But let's go ahead and try to order a bike here and actually see what the cost is. So this one's actually the Sondors X, because they no longer sell the Sondors 7. So we're going to configure this one just like we configured mine that I did in this comparison video. So with the LCD screen and the 7-speed shifter, along with the front suspension, you're up to $1,199. The difference between this bike and the bike that I ordered is this one features a 48 volt 11.17 amp hour battery and a 500 watt rear hub motor. So this is actually a little bit closer in comparison to the Radrover than the bike that I actually ordered with the Sondors 7. So let's go ahead and continue the checkout process to see how much shipping is. And going back here, hang on a second. I forgot an important detail. Sometimes you actually might not get what you ordered. Here's a prime example from Scott. This is not the first time that this has happened, but he actually ordered 2 original Fat Tire bikes, one in silver and one in charcoal. However, the bikes that he received were silver and gold. So he contacted Sondors via chat and he got nowhere. Basically, he was told to either wait 3 months for Sondors to build and ship a charcoal bike or keep the gold bike. What kind of shitty ass customer service is that, to where you're told by the company that we need to build a bike for you, wait 3 months, don't ride the gold one? Anyways, that aside, let's see how much it would cost to ship this bad boy to us. So we enter in our state, our zip code, and it comes out to being $154 to ship the bike. So this bike shipped is $1,353. That is a $146 difference from the Radrover. So when you land on the Rad Power Bikes website, you'll definitely notice that there is a lot more information on the bikes compared to the Sondors. So when you go to order a bike and you click on the actual bike itself, you'll definitely see there's a lot more attention to detail about the bikes than you'll see on the Sondors website. And you'll have anything from the description to the features to the technical specs of it all the way up to the size and dimensions of the bicycle itself. And that goes a long way to build the confidence in what you're spending your money on. And that's something that I personally did not get from the Sondors website. And the nice thing about these Rad Power bikes is they're in stock. They're not quote unquote hand built for you, they ship typically next day, if not the same day. And this company is actually based out of Seattle, Washington, and their inventory is based out of Seattle, Washington. So when you order a bike from Rad Power Bikes, you'll actually get the bike to your door within about 5 days or so, depending on where you live. And it's a much better experience, needless to say, to order a bike, especially when you know all the details. So when it comes to the two bikes, the Sondors is definitely a good cheap bike. However, in that price point, you get far more bang for your buck buying a Radrover over a Sondors. So I hope this video was helpful in determining which bike is the better value. If you have any questions or comments, post up below.